season. Summer heat's going nowhere as the calendar flipped to September. And how about 5 contracts handed out by Dana White last week? Keep in mind, just 4 fights. It was historic. They're the first time he gave out both fighters a contract, winner and loser. We know there's more where that came from. With Yanni the Greek Corrales, I'm Brendan Fitzgerald. We're here to get you primed for the betting odds for Week 2 tonight on this special On the Line Dana White's Contender Series edition. Yanni, first let's recap Week 1. You went 2-1 on your picks. Your best bet hit, and your one loss was the little sprinkle on the big underdog. It forced you to get involved. Your thoughts on Week 1?
Yeah, it went exactly as I would have hoped. I mean, granted, we knew going in, listen, if you're going to bet those big dogs, like I said going into it, I'm comfortable knowing I'm going to throw this ticket out 6 out of 10 times. So you bet a lot smaller. I'm glad the best bet came through and the prop bet came through. And anytime you turn a winning night, that's always a good thing. Anytime you finish ahead of the books.
Mentioned that you hit on your best bet. That was Joe Anderson Brito who gets the win and the UFC contract. If you remember, though, it was the eye poke that ended it in the 3rd round. They still scored the fight because it got to round 3, but just proof that fluky things can happen, especially in our sport of mixed martial arts. And when you go to the betting window, that's why you have to have not just belief that you're going to win or that you have the better side of it, but that you got to factor in that margin to make sure it's truly a good bet.
And that's what really is one of the factors that most separates casual bettors from professional bettors. A professional bettor knows what the upside and downside is, meaning I know during my best runs on a -110 sport, I'm going to throw away 45 out of every 100 bets. You know, I'm going to go 55%, 57% at best. So you got to bet accordingly. You got to manage your risk accordingly. MMA, with a money line sport, you got to draw your conclusion on what your win probability should be. If I say he should win this fight 60% of the time, once that line passes that threshold, I got to be willing to either leave that bet alone or even switch my opinion if it moves enough to where now I said fighter B wins 40%. If I'm getting enough plus where now it better than that 40%, I have to be willing to change my mind from going in to bet fighter A, but now I'll fight better at fighter B. And all winning bettors are disciplined to do that. And I think casual bettors, it's a learning process. And that's why I say, manage your money. Risk management is so key. Bet small in relation to your bankroll. That volatility, you see how these lines move, and you see how the finishes happen a lot of times.
Speaking of line movement, what can you take from Week 1 that informs your bets on Week 2?
That we saw a lot of late money, and even though the public doesn't get respect from bookmakers, they do bet a lot of money, and money and respect moves lines. And sometimes when you miss that bet early, sit back and wait. Look at those numbers later, because as that money comes in, the bookmakers are going to be forced to adjust. They need to manage the risk as well and try to maybe attract money on the other side. So you're never out of it. That's why I always say, keep that eye on the screen when you miss the bet, and it may come back to you. Never chase. Never take a bad number. There's always a next better bet to make. You should never take the worst of it.
All right, let's take a look at the big line moves coming up this week. What have you noticed? Because that's a theme on Dana White's Contender Series. The lines will go all over the place. What about this week?
None bigger than the opening bout with Gaturov. And it's warranted. In fact, it opens as low as -180, where the break-even's about that 70% mark. Got up to that -225 range. That's where I got involved. Now we're looking at a -400. So now the break-even's 80%. Personally, I couldn't comfortably say that I think it's a plus EV bet anymore, because now you would have had to conclude he wins this 87, 90% of the time. And if that was the case, I should have mortgaged my house when it opened at -180 and unloaded. What was I waiting for? So again, I think now the line's gotten to where the value's gone. But if you like action, I think the favorite's the right side. It's the kind of guy you like. 8 years younger, is going to have the reach advantage, 17-3. His 3 losses are to opponents who went 52-17, won 75% of their bets. I mean, their fights, not bets. So again, he's got the makings of the kind of favorite you want to back, but you got to bet him earlier. You're not going to get a good price.
Let's talk about another line movement. The second bout of the night just after that one is at flyweight. CJ Vergara, Bruno Correa. There's been some line move here.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised to see some money come in on Correa, because the bottom line is you're going to pay a premium for those fighters that have that experience in the UFC, in Dana White's Contender Series, on top. But it moved so much from that minus 155 all the way to that minus 240, 250, 260 range. And that's where you started seeing some comeback and some sharper money. I got involved on the underdog at a nice plus money for a smaller bet. And now you're looking at a minus 220 plus 180 range. I think that'll move upwards. I expect more public money on the favorite. Be cautious. That dog looks live.
All right, now it's time for what you're all waiting for, the best bets for this Tuesday night. We'll start with the bantamweight fight. Simon Oliveira taking on Jose Alday. You like the Alday side here.
Yeah, and rarely will I bet a fighter on 1 week's notice. They don't win all that often, but I'm getting the plus that I need. At plus 150 or better, my break even's 40%. And it's better than a coin flip in my direction. Strength of schedule matters most pre-UFC. And he's got it at Combate. And more important, he's got those wins against Castaneda, against Lopez. But it's going to come down to, is he cardio ready? Because when you look at the Oliveira side, he's below that flyweight average with finishes. So you could take him into deeper waters. And my guy should have the volume edge. If his cardio's on point, I think he gets it done at plus 150 or better. That's my best bet.
All right, we'll call it Jose Alday at plus 155 at the moment. Again, keep your eye on the number. Your next best bet, you were torn as to which was your actual best bet on the card. Chidi and Joe Kuani, is even money right now as the younger brother of Anthony and Joe Kuani, UFC veteran, and you like the Chidi side here, small underdog.
Yeah, and usually with that name recognition and being 8 years older, I would be passing. But I can't overlook the fact that his strength of schedule is as legit as it comes for not fighting in the UFC. So being able to weigh that data came a lot more easier. Where on the flip side, with Sousa, I'm not surprised that the public's on that side. He's got the momentum at 12-1. He's got the experience on Dana White's Contender Series, having gone through the process already. But at even money, I gotta bet that in Joe Kuani's side, I think he should be at least a minus 150 favorite. So he got to my money tonight.
All right. Yanni's all warmed up, but he's not going anywhere. You're going to be featured prominently on episode 2 tonight. Dan Helly, Daniel Cormier, and Laura Sanko will have your call. You can only watch it on ESPN Plus at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. How many contracts this week? Gave out 5 with 4 fights. Might we see more contracts than fights again from Las Vegas? Again, tune in. Tuesday night action. You gotta love it. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, ESPN Plus. Thanks for watching us. Enjoy the fights tonight.